Welcome to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. Heartland Crime Stoppers is a community-based program designed to help law enforcement solve crimes by providing a way for the public to phone in tips anonymously and receive cash rewards of up to $3,000 for information that leads to an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs. Heartland Crime Stoppers is funded through the State of Florida Office of the Attorney General Crime Stoppers Trust Fund and through donations from the community. Citizens and local businesses make Crime Stoppers work. Over the last year, Crime Stoppers received 3,142 tips, resulting in 251 arrests, and recovered $35,441 in property or drugs, while having approved rewards of $98,045. On today's show, we will take a look back at some of the places and people we visited and who visited us in the year in review. Taking Crime Stoppers on the road is no small task. This year we visited the Lakeland Police Department SWAT team, the Polk County Sheriff's Office Training Center, the Lake Wells K-9 Unit, and the Polk County Sheriff's Office Operations Unit. Here are some of the highlights. Now, on the sniper aspect of it, you shoot anywhere from, 50 yards back to 300, 400 yards, is that correct?
Yeah, we've trained to be proficient out to 500 yards, typically being a municipality. Yeah, you're talking maybe 70 yards or less for an average.
And you're not shooting these targets just from a prone position or a sitting position, with a brace and at a table. I see you have scenarios set up where you're actually shooting from the top of a simulated roof.
Yes.
And from sides of berms and sides of mountains and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we do all sorts of positional shooting. Like you said, it's not, sure you'd love to be laying down in a prone position on a blanket. Typically that's not what's going to happen when we're out there on a real call out. Like you said, we've been on rooftops, we shoot underneath cars, out of cars, in the bushes. Wherever you're at, you just gotta have to try to make and set up to take the best shot you can take.
What happens after they make from sergeant to lieutenant? What happens at that point?
And once they make a lieutenant, then that's a different, then they do have to leave the team. We have a lieutenant that is over SWAT, but that's an appointed position. It's not it's not a SWAT. They're not required to do the same qualifications as the SWAT member.
It would almost seem like the experience and training that these officers get on SWAT actually prepares them for that promotion to sergeant and for lieutenant, does it not?
I believe so. I think that's why if you look at the team, when you talk about leadership and all of those qualities, that's why we're so heavy with sergeants on the team, because the same things that make them a good SWAT operator, carries over onto your leadership positions and, in whatever field they're in, whether it's patrol, traffic, narcotics, whatever it is. So yes,
Well, it's just like driving. You don't start out driving high speed. You start out with the slow stuff, stop and go, and you get your basics down. Just like on the static range here, you get your fundamentals, you get those honed, you learn how to shoot, you understand, your weapon control and your recoil and don't anticipate your shots.
Correct.
And then you move to the more advanced stuff. So it is a process, and it just takes time to learn.
Yeah, definitely. It's baby steps. We start them off real slow, get them comfortable with shooting. As y'all will see here in a little bit, we have members that will come out and they'll shoot throughout the days. They practice, they come out and just get better and better as time goes. It's a skill set that's never going to be perfected. It's always a work in progress.
Exactly. It's just like any other, whether you're playing an instrument or running a race or shooting a weapon, you still have to have those skills honed so you're proficient and you shoot better the more you practice.
It's definitely, it's what we call a diminishing skill. The best you'll ever be is when you leave the range. And the minute you leave and get back out on the highway, your skill set starts to diminish and goes lower and lower. If you wait a year till you come out the next time, you might not have good results. If you come out every month, you'll probably be really good on qualification day.
We're driving around here at the training center and their new driving pad. And If you get too close to the vehicle, it's going to alert you and tell you exactly how much distance you have time-wise from the car in front of you. There again, if you are distracted, this will help the deputies and the drivers to know, hey, pay more attention, you're starting to get too close to the car, or the car in front is making a sudden stop. So,
you know, Chip, if you look up here on the Mobileye itself, it's saying 0.7 seconds. That will notify you when you get at 0.8 seconds from the car in front of you. Now we'll slow down, then we've noticed it, and it's going up, and now we're at 1 second from the car in front of us. So we'll close the gap.
and there again, besides the visual, you have the audio alert.
Correct.
That
Yes,
lets
sir.
you know that you're too close, because again, the standard rule of thumb is 1 to 1.5 seconds behind the car in front of you.
Exactly. And like I spoke before, Chip, they're busy. The deputies are looking everywhere. Traffic violations, looking for suspects, and they are going to take their eyes from in front of that vehicle there occasionally. So it's just there to help warn them what's going on.
Our canines handle patrol duties, which are apprehension, tracking. They also handle narcotic detection. When you think about narcotic detection, you think about somebody cooking. If, for instance, if you walk into a house and somebody's cooking spaghetti, we say, hey, there's spaghetti cooking. Well, when a canine walks in, the canine says, wow, oregano, tomatoes, basil, garlic. Their noses are so powerful, it's phenomenal how they can actually detect things that the human nose could never detect. So very, very valuable and very helpful in our community and countywide.
Absolutely. You talk about, I've heard 300 or 400 times more sensitive their nose for things, and it's amazing what they can pick up that the human just can't pick up.
Not only that, we look at that application, but the human relations and the PR aspect of it is incredible. The dogs are great. The dogs they're very friendly. They actually stay with the handlers, go home with the handlers every day. So they're very manageable, and they're very friendly as long as they're not in work mode. And they do great in the schools. They do great in our retirement communities. We take them out and do demonstrations very frequently. And it's just a great public relations tool. Everybody loves the canines, and we love the fact that we have all that great support.
Now, you didn't just walk into the chief's office one day and say, Chief Velasquez, I want to be a canine handler, and he didn't say, that's a good idea, here's the keys to the dog. There's a long process to get to that point, and a number of steps you have to climb to get there, isn't it?
That's correct. At our agency, you have to have a minimum of 3 years before you can join a special unit. The canine unit is one of our special units. Your annual evaluation has to be above average. You have to be an officer that excels. You don't need. They're looking for people that's not needing to be guided, supervised. Basically, you just have to be an above average officer before you're even considered for the canine unit. Once you've passed all of that, then there's criteria you have to meet with certain classes you have to be an officer too. So it's kind of like a promotion there. And then on top of that, you go through a process of interviewing, and it's interviewed by the peers of the canine. Once you pass that and you're selected as one of the 4, then you'll go in front of the admin board. And then once the admin says, these are the 2 officers that I want, then the chief will make the ultimate decision on the officer that gets the canine unit.
That bond is so strong that unless you have actually lived it and experienced it, most folks don't understand or comprehend that.
No, out here it is a battle every day fighting crime. A lot of guys, they've been to prison. The judge tells them if you come back in front of me again, you're going to go to prison for more years. So when we do corner up an armed robbery suspect out in the woods, or a child molester that we've tracked 3 miles and found, they're either going to fight or take flight. It's one of the two. And many times they decide to fight. Even after we give the canine warnings, give yourself up, or, a canine will be apprehending you. they want to take that risk because they don't want to go back to prison. So it's an everyday battle with the crime.
And again, that's a safety issue for the officers, because if the dog wasn't going in to get them out, somebody with a gun's going to have to go in there and physically search it, and the propensity for someone being hurt, the officer being hurt, or being the suspect being hurt worse, is so much greater that it's just such a valuable tool.
Yes, when we have a burglary with forced entry, or we have a subject that takes off running from the car and he goes out in the woods, or it was a shooting to where he's fled, we don't have to send an officer in to make physical contact with this armed subject. We strap a bulletproof vest on the dog. If the conditions are right, we send the dog in. We give the warnings before. We ask the suspect to surrender. Half the time, or more than half the time, the helicopters above illuminating the area. We try to get them to surrender. If they make the choice, we send the dog in. If we hear them yell, or whatever the case may be, we go in. The dog will be making contact, and 99% of the time, the fight's over after that.
It's a piece of equipment we've had now for approximately 2.5 years. It's a custom-built machine. It runs on a Chevy 350 motor. It has large tractor tires on it, and we use it for a variety of different things, as far as searching for people, evidence sometimes. We've used it for search for missing people, for people who have been lost for a long time. Unfortunately, we use it for recovery services, and we've also used it in several times for looking for suspects who have ran into heavily wooded areas where it's very hard to get around, where it'll be palmettos that are really tall, swampy areas. The machine's pretty much unstoppable. As long as it doesn't get hung up or caught on something, it pretty much can go through anything you point it at.
What is the clearance on this unit?
Overall, the total clearance for the deck is about 8 feet. The tires and the chassis, you pretty much 4 to 6 feet.
Well, tell us a little bit about some of the equipment about the bird here. Tell us what's on here.
This is a MD 500E model. In the military, it was 086, and I flew one of these on active duty, but this we just purchased in 2013, and it's quite the aircraft. It's we have some equipment on here that assists us. Number one, we have the SX5 searchlight. Right here it's 15 million candle power. We also have our FLIR, forward-looking infrared. Our searchlight, which assists us, we usually fly around 700 feet to 1,200 feet at night, and it will light up the same as like a football field. That's how powerful it is. It's an amazing piece of equipment. Our FLIR, forward-looking infrared, it sees, it takes the light that's out there, or the heat, and enhances it. And so, in other words, if you are out there and your body's a different temperature than the trees, the leaves, the ground, and it sees temperature.
Crime Stoppers provides a way for local law enforcement to receive information on crimes while keeping the people providing that information anonymous. These efforts increase tips, which in turn solve more crimes and identify criminals in our community. Here's a look at some of our most recent cases.
Do you know Julian Byrd, or where he is? He's decided to flee from officers and is now wanted for aggravated assault on a law officer, fleeing to elude, and driving while license is suspended or revoked. Byrd is described as a black male, 5'10", 190 pounds, and his date of birth is March 17th, 1970. On November 18, 2016, the unidentified female fraudulently used the victim's identification to obtain a credit card from Dillard's located at 100 Eagle Ridge Drive and then purchased Dillard's merchandise. She also opened an account with AT&T located at 901 Eagle Ridge Drive to obtain iPhones. On November 18, 2016, an unidentified black female ordered food at a Burger King on Highway 60 in Lake Wales and attempted to use a counterfeit $100 bill. When the clerk refused the counterfeit bill, the female left the restaurant in a small gray sedan with an unidentified black male who also attempted to use a counterfeit bill in the drive-thru. On November 18th at 1:28 a.m., a 911 call was received that a vehicle had crashed into the back of an apartment located at 645 Avenue I, Northwest in Winter Haven. When officers arrived, 39-year-old Jimmy Lee Rogers Jr. was found unresponsive inside of the vehicle that hit the building with what appeared to be a gunshot wound. EMS transported Rogers to Winter Haven Hospital, where he was declared deceased. On October 30th, 2016, a business burglary occurred at Eye Specialist located in Haines City. Door of the business was shattered and an undisclosed amount of Hostess sunglasses were stolen. If you have any information on any of the cases you've just seen or any information on an unsolved crime, please contact Heartland Crime Stoppers and leave an anonymous tip. The toll-free tip line is 1-800-226-TIPS. That's 8477. You can also leave an anonymous web tip by going to www.heartlandcrimestoppers.com and click on the Give a Tip tab, or by going to www.p3tips.com. Don't forget, you can download our free P3 Tips app on your smart device. Whichever way you choose to leave a tip, you will remain 100% anonymous. If your tip results in an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs, you could be eligible for a cash reward of up to $3,000.
Welcome back to the Year in Review of Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. In the first half of the show, we took a look at some of the places we went over the last 12 months. In this half, we'll take a look back at some of the more memorable interviews we did. Brian Haas, State Attorney-elect for the 10th Judicial Circuit. Gary Hester, the Deputy County Manager overseeing Polk County Public Safety. Chris Bogie with the Winter Haven Police Department DARE program, and Barb Bergen, Executive Director with Central Florida Crime Line. Here are the highlights. Now, you are the Chief Assistant Attorney for the State Attorney's Office. Now, tell us what that entails.
Well, about a year or so after I came back to the State Attorney's Office, Mr. Hill asked me to serve as his Chief Assistant. Chip Tallberry, who worked for the office for years and years, was set to retire. And so Mr. Hill asked me to take that job. That job it's a lot of different things. One, it oversees the day-to-day operations of the State Attorney's Office. It helps with the recruiting, and we have to get our lawyers from all over the state to have enough people here to staff what we have. It also is responsible for the media, so that job is important because it's the contact with whether it's the newspaper or the television or radio, and dealing with the media takes up a lot of my day.
Yeah, well, you have to keep people informed. They want to know, and you want to make sure they get the right information as to what's happening, because there's so much misinformation that goes out with rumors and mistruths that if you don't do that, you're already behind the curve.
It's important, and I believe that the more the public knows about our justice system, the State Attorney's Office particularly, the more they'll be impressed with what we do. I think that there's a real danger in lack of information, and if there's a vacuum and there's no information out there that's accurate, people are going to put their own narrative out there, right or wrong. So it's important to us to get the right story out. So we appreciate the members of the media that are reporting on our cases, and we're also working internally to do a better job of reaching a new generation of citizens who may get their news from other sources than the typical media.
Now, Chris, you brought a number of the teaching aids that you use in your class. Why don't you share them with us?
Sure. First of all, I have our workbook, which is Keeping It Real, DARE workbook. It includes the lesson that we teach, the 10-week program. So each week we teach one of the lessons from the book. And the kids are participate in it, and they have to do certain work, might be at home also. So this is the workbook for their program.
Yeah. So it's not something you just teach. They're actually interacting and having homework to do and things to fill out, and they actually are doing stuff, not just listening to you.
Exactly. They're not just listening. They actually get a grade from their teacher for participating in the DARE program. They have to write an essay, first of all. In order to graduate from the DARE program, they need to write an essay. And that essay is graded by their teacher, which they get a writing grade. And from your essay that they write, we actually select from each of our school. So one of these essays is selected from their school to represent the school at the Big DARE graduation. So it might be one person, their essay came up the top of their school.
Now, I know that when you retired from the sheriff's office, you went over as the chief of police in Winter Haven. How was that jump? How did that equate out?
It was much different in going into municipal policing as opposed to working for an elected sheriff, a constitutional office, a large agency. Sheriff's office is certainly one of the largest and most professional agencies in the country. Going to a medium-sized police department certainly has its challenges. You have less staff, but you have the same level of performance that you have to produce there with less staff. So a lot of great people at Winter Haven. I enjoyed the time there. We had a very productive time. Reduced crime by over 25% in the 4 years, and was able to really invest in the staff. It's a great city, great community. I certainly miss the folks at the sheriff's office and at Winter Haven, my colleagues there. But this is a new challenge that I'm confronted with now, and one of the important things I think many folks overlook is I got a young start in law enforcement, but law enforcement is changing, and even more so today. And you can't underestimate the importance of education and seeking education, staying current in those fields. Experience alone is not enough. You also have to be educated and go to some of the best command schools in the country. And fortunately, under Sheriff Crow and Sheriff Judge leadership, they provided that opportunity for the men and women of the Sheriff's Office to seek some of the best training in the country. And that certainly helped me as I transitioned to be a police chief, and certainly that leadership skills still help me today.
We talked about Crime Stoppers USA, but there's also a state agency, the Florida Association of Crime Stoppers, and you're very active in that group as well.
Yes, well, we have to be, because in order to receive our grant, we have to be in good standing with the Florida Association of Crime Stoppers. But it's invaluable what you can learn from other Crime Stopper programs. And I don't know about you, Chip, and I know you come to the conferences and stuff. When we get a bunch of Crime Stopper groups together, whether it be over dinner or breakfast in the morning, the networking that you receive being a part of this group and learning from another program. And you and I talk on the phone pretty regularly, and you're like, hey Barb, what about this? And I'll call you and say, Chip, you got anything down there like this? Or it's just that we're in the same business, and there's a limited number of people you can talk to. So being a part of an organization, whether it be the Florida Association of Crime Stoppers or CSUSA, is invaluable. Plus the training that's provided at all of the conferences is wonderful.
Crime Stoppers USA's big anniversary, and also for Crime Line.
It is. So Crime Line will be celebrating our 40th anniversary next year in the summertime. Crime Stoppers USA, we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of the first case, if you will, of what started Crime Stoppers as we know it, the documentation of it. A guy named Greg McAleese was a young detective with Albuquerque Police Department, and he caught a homicide where a college student had been shot and killed in a robbery at a gas station. And for a couple of weeks it was going nowhere. There were no tips, there were no leads, and he was getting frustrated, and the media's asking, what are we doing here? How can we make this better? And he went to his chief and he said, Chief, maybe we could do a reenactment with the media to kind of get it back out in the forefront with the media again, and maybe offer a reward in anonymity. And as crazy as it sounds, Greg McAleese slept at his desk because that was the only phone number they had 40 years ago. And he stayed at his desk for a couple of days, and ultimately they took a call that identified and gave information about a unique car that was seen leaving the area at a high rate of speed, which solved that case. So thus was the first case where anonymity, a reward, and those kind of things happened. 40 years ago, we didn't have video like we do today. You and I both get sent video cases. It when I leave here today, I'm going to get videotaped driving through an intersection. So we have video everywhere. Your life is on tape now.
Yes.
But 40 years ago, that wasn't the case.
No.
And so they were doing reenactments, and Crime Line was even doing them. They were horrible. It's funny to laugh at them now because we used really bad cop actors, horrible props. But in the day, that was the thing. People would wait to see what the Crime Line reenactment is.
Tell us a little bit about Lake Hamilton Police Department, Chief.
It's a smaller department that's over on the ridge side of the county, in between Dundee and Haines City. A quaint little town, very good community there. Takes you back a little bit of time as the way that people are so supportive of the individuals and each other there.
Yeah, I think you equated it to almost like a Mayberry setting.
In a sense, yes. It's very, very laid back in a sense, and like I said, the people invite you in their house and make you pecan pie and little things.
Very interesting. Now, you grew up in Kathleen, and you still have a lot of family up in that area, don't you?
Yes, both my brothers and my parents still live in the Kathleen area, Chart Prime area in that sense. And it was kind of a small community as well during the time I grew up back then, before the mall and all the explosive growth of Lakeland occurred.
Yeah. Now you went to Kathleen High School, obviously. Tell us how you actually got into law enforcement and how that worked out for you.
After high school, I started college, and I was working on my associate's degree in criminal justice. And I had worked a little bit of Gator Freightways. They had moved to Lakeland in a new terminal. Started at Publix, worked my way to as a security supervisor, and had a lot of interaction with some of the Polk County Sheriff deputies as part of my duties when I was working there at corporate. And it got a little bug in between the college and dealing with them, and it was something that I wanted to get in law enforcement. So I decided to go ahead and go to the academy.
Okay. Now you went to Avon Park Academy down in Sebring, or Avon Park, I should say.
Yes, it was South Florida Community College back then. I went to a part-time academy so I could still work. I did a night academy. It was over almost 9 months.
I was going to say that's about a 9-month program, working a full-time job, going to the academy at night and weekends.
Yes.
So your time was pretty limited for what other things you wanted to do outside of work and going to the academy.
Yeah, it was like I said, a long-term goal for me at the time, and I remember counting the days off of my little calendar every day as how many days I had left in the academy. And
I noticed finally a couple new police cars, because again, when you started, you had absolutely nothing. I'm seeing some new police cars, and understand maybe you've got some positions that may be coming up.
Yeah, we had, when we first started, we were trying to just make things meet. I had some donated vehicles that we were driving around, still some driving around, but we were appropriated 2 brand new Dodge Chargers, which I'm very happy with. They just set the campus in the right direction with professionalism and stuff. And yes, I got 2 positions that we're actually going through the process. In July, we'll actually be able to hire 2 more, and that'll give me a staff of 8. Right now, currently, I have 6 police officers, and then 3 public safety officers, which are civilian, the 3. And fortunately, hopefully, for the following year, we're going to get 2 more positions, so we'll have a staff of 10 at that point in time.
Yeah, the department just continues to grow, and it's from the very beginning, it has really just changed so much.
Well, and the student population as well. I mean, we went from 550 students the first year to 950 the second year, and the third one we're on track for around 1,250 to 1,300. So, and as the university grows, of course, hopefully our department grows with it.
That's going to do it for this edition of Crime Stoppers. Keep in mind, Heartland Crime Stoppers is an organization that helps law enforcement solve crime through anonymous tips and monetary rewards. It encourages a cooperative partnership between law enforcement, the media, and the community to ensure security and enhance our quality of life within Polk County. For more information, you can check us out on the web at heartlandcrimestoppers.com or follow us on Facebook at Heartland Crime Stoppers Florida. Until next time, keep in mind, it's a crime, and you can help make sure that they don't get away with it.